All right.
Finally.
Yeah, we were experiencing some little technology vortex. Everything was not working, so it's good to be live now. And just wanted to quickly welcome everyone to the Giving Business Soul podcast. We were away from the podcast last week because we were at a Ensenada Philanthropy trip, which we're going to be talking about. But just wanted to give the intention of the podcast, which is it's really about talking about a new paradigm that's emerging as it relates to business. As I feel things, I mean, the world is ready, it's ripe, it wants to introduce the heart and soul into the business world. And the podcast is really about what we're doing here at the Mortgage Phoenix Group, Legacy Real Estate Group as well, and bringing forward a new paradigm where philanthropy is embedded inside the business organization. And it allows us to do a lot of amazing things. And so we, as I mentioned, just did a recent trip to Ensenada, and I got two amazing young people here and a young couple, and we're gonna kind of get into some of the really cool things that I love about this story. But I'd love to let me just introduce you. Maybe that'll be good. This is Quinn Nolan. Quinn Nolan is the founder of Giving Marketing Soul. Definitely a soul brother. We connected about 18 months ago, somewhere there. I'm sure we're going to probably touch on that story. And then to his right,
to my right,
we have the lovely Alexis Hart Adams, and just an amazing, amazing woman that I've had the blessed opportunity to speak with, hang out with, spend some time with. Lovely, really pristine energy that she carries, and they are an amazing little couple here. And so yeah, that's who is here on the podcast with me. And so what I'd love to do to get it started today is I'm a big, just fan of the mystery of life. It always is just doing its thing, and it's weaving its magic and doing all sorts of fun things. And I think this story, may lend itself to maybe share some background and context to how this is all developed, because I think it'll leave a lot of people out there inspired around just following the impulse of your own soul, of your own heart. I know that when we first met, you were on a sort of a different trajectory, and now you're in a whole different trajectory. And so that's pretty amazing. It really is amazing to see, and I think it's got alignment too as well with the trip that we just did, because that's a love story, and it's about following the impulse of the heart, and we'll get into that. But Quinn, why don't you take it away, brother? Tell us about a little bit about how our relationship sort of came about, and what's happened ever since, and where you were going, where you're at, and what's going on.
I actually I was on I have like my personal Instagram, and then I have like an account where I just follow people just so I can browse and not get any notifications. And I actually was looking last night, and I saw a text that you had sent me, and I remember I just put in the caption, and it was basically just being in the middle of going to school. So I was in college, I was pursuing, to get a business degree, and I grew up with a single mom. And so for me, I was in the middle of doing what I thought I had to do to just be successful, and then also seeing other people that were doing amazing things, like making money online or selling things and creating social media brands. So I was very conflicted with what I thought society and what my friends were doing and what I even thought my mom wanted me to do, versus kind of what you're saying, which was following my heart, which was really seeing these people that were creating brands and videos and content, and knowing that was what my heart wanted me to do. Yet my mind was like, no, if you don't go to school, how are you going to get a job? You hear people say, well, if you don't have a degree, you're not going to get a good job, and that whole stigma. So basically, it just came down to so many undeniable moments that happened that it was just like, how could I go against what I think is right, if it's just like God, life, whatever you believe was just leading me to, doing what I'm doing now. So that's kind of the overall context of where I was in my life when I met Francisco. And at the time too, I was reading or listening to the Surrender Experiment. So it was, and if you haven't checked that book out, it's super powerful. And so just a quick story, I was selling Cutco, which is basically knives, and home cutlery items. And so my mother, who's a real estate agent, had met Francisco via doing a loan with him. And so when I was starting out, I needed people to call and referrals, and was trying to get out there. And so she basically gave me his phone number, and I tried to call him a few times and he didn't answer. And then I remember I called him. Well, she had told me he was doing philanthropy, but I didn't really think anything more than that. And so I remember I called him, and then he finally answered, and he's like, "Oh, what's up, brother? I just got back from Peru." And I'm just like, "Oh, that's so sick." And just but in my head, I'm just trying to sell the knives. I had that aspect of connecting with other people for sure, but I was trying to get the appointment. But long story short, we ended up meeting and just talking for 2.5, 3 hours. And I remember I called her after, and I was like, "Dude, I just had this conversation," and I was trying to explain it. I'm like, never mind, it's just not even worth trying.
He also said at the end of the conversation, "I'm gonna work with him one day."
I did. That's a little side note. I didn't know. That's awesome.
He did. He said that.
Yeah, interesting.
So we had that first initial meeting, and we just connected really, really well. And then we basically set another meeting up, did the same exact thing.
And I think that the big point inside of that is that the knives or the presentation you were there to give me never quite happened, right? It's like
not yet,
right? It's like he comes in and it's like he's got his little bag ready to do a presentation. We go in the conference room, he sets it down, and then we just start connecting. And then it's like Quinn said, a 2.5, 3 hour deep conversation, and I like to call those wormholes, because from a scientific perspective, it's like wormholes in science exist where you drop into some black hole or something, and you come out on the other side, and then it's like you're never the same, right? It's just and that's kind of what it felt like for both of us. Like, boom, we went to a wormhole, and then said, okay, well let's do it again. Let's see if we can get to it, and then same thing happened, right?
Yeah, same thing, and then. To tie it all together, basically, I was at that place in my life already where, like I said, I was in school, but I started this habit of reading every day. I remember I was telling her, I'm going to read 5 pages every day, and I just kept with it, and I was reading How to Win Friends and Influence People, and the Sam Walton story, and Tony, and all these books, and I'm like, okay, I need to execute on this stuff that I'm learning. And so when we had met around that time, I was still in school in that mindset. And so I went back up, and this was after you had told me you needed someone to do social media, and it just seemed unreal. And I was driving up there actually with Kevin, if he's on there. And this was after I was asking him, and just really dealing with that inner conflict of doing what my mind thought I needed to do and versus what my heart just needed to do and wanted to do. And I was driving up, and just my car broke down, and and I was like, man, I knew at that moment, I'm like, what a sign. I going up there, I was I felt really emotional. I'm like, man, I don't even feel like going. And I just remember it was actually was it my birthday? I don't know. It was close to my birthday. And so I drove up, and my car broke down, and just so many signs were telling me to just follow my heart and what life was telling me that it needed me for.
And then I think if I remember right too, it just seemed like there was just a ton of turbulence when you left, right? It was just like one thing,
arm too.
one thing
his
after
arm.
another.
Oh.
The first it was the vehicle, and then then you had to spend the night at a hotel room.
Yeah.
That was really a funky place, and then the arm goes, and then it's just like he's texting me going, "What the hell is going on?" You know, there's some sort of energetic turbulence going on, and as he was saying, it's like, there are no coincidences. There are just those that don't understand universal law. And when you understand that, it's like nothing happens just because. It's like once you understand the deeper implication of that, it's like, oh, okay. Yeah. And as you said, it's like it's hard to deny it, because even as one is receiving it, and one opens to the fact that life talks to us, you can't, like you said, it's just, you can't deny it, right? It's just like it's coming at you. The sign is very clear, and so then you get up there, and what happens after that?
So I get up there, and then I don't know if he'll see this, but there's a guy named Danny. He's like super into working out and just like an intense dude. And I remember I was up there, and at that point I had pretty much checked out of school. I was just full on online marketing, running ads. I was trying to sell the knives that I was only able to sell in person online. I had like made my own website, and I was running my own ads off my credit card. And so I was just pretty much not going to school, which she wasn't too happy with, but I wouldn't go in. I'd wake up at like 12 p.m. and just go to sleep at like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. And I was just pretty much in that, I wasn't half in, at least, although I was physically at school. I was mentally like, all right, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to learn, I'm going to go for it. And so when I was up there in that transition period, there was this guy named Danny, super intense. Like I said, he wants to be a Navy SEAL. So you could just imagine. He's like, he knows Goggins and all those dudes. And he just, And so we did this workout, man, and it was just insane. And like, I remember like I was looking at my arm like 2 days or 1 day after, and I'm like, dude, like, you got me like buff in like one workout. And then like I looked like the next day, I'm like, this isn't muscle. And like I remember it was just swollen. My entire, it was my left arm.
Yeah. Left side.
It was my left arm.
Entire arm. Like, it looked like he got stung by bees.
It
was huge.
It was
I think
huge.
I remember you sent me a photo.
I have a photo.
Yeah, it was huge.
My forearm, I remember, it was just like, And so I was telling him about this at this time, and he's like, it's not the workout. He's like, it wasn't the workout. And now that I have, had a relationship with him, now I can see that stuff. But at the time, I mean, I was open to that stuff, but I didn't really know. So he's like, it's not the workout. And I'm like, what do you mean it's not the workout? I'm like, it was insane. And so I called him, and then he was saying like the left side's related to the feminine side, and like holding things on, and like that. I mean, there were different things at the time really resonated with me, but I think also what I was going through was with my mom, like living in that truth that like, okay, I don't want to, it's not even that I didn't want to go to school. It was like my life was telling me I needed to be somewhere else. It wasn't like I didn't want to go to school. It was like, this was just, more, it was
more alignment.
More alignment. And so that was where I was at, and he just said some things, and I remember I called my mom, and I told her like I wasn't going to classes, and I was just, this is what I wanted to do. And so after we had that conversation, like, sure enough, my arm started to like what do you call it, like
just
the swelling went down, or and it just started to get better. But even when that thing did happen to my arm, I mean, we went to the hospital. It was like, it was just so many things that I would never do. Like, I was at the hospital, all these people coughing, and I'm just like,
It's
And they were like,
Remember
well, if
that
it's
too.
a blood clot, like you may have a chance
surgery
to die.
today, right
Yeah,
now.
And
yeah,
so all
yeah,
these
yeah.
things just seemed like totally out of the norm, and I think, and I don't know, I know it's your show, but I have a question.
Sure. Ask away.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know what you would call that, but I guess just to ask the question, it's like, what is that period that you go through when you're like transitioning, where you're kind of, these things that are happening that are out of the normal because you're going from maybe what you would call out of flow and then like into flow. So that's kind of what I was experiencing. So I don't know if you could maybe
share a little bit about that. Yeah. So what Quinn is mentioning there, so he had gone through that workout, but the moment he was sharing what had happened, I got a pretty clear sort of intuitive hit that it wasn't related to the workout, and that it was more in regards to the fact that and just to kind of lay this piece out there, is that we have multiple bodies. We have the physical body, the emotional body, the intellectual body, the spiritual bodies up top, and the one that's closest to the physical body is the emotional body. And so whenever people are experiencing emotional turbulence of any kind, the body's always going to manifest it. Now, Western medicine doesn't quite look at it that way. Eastern philosophy definitely would be much more, they got a lot more relationship to that sort of wisdom stream. And so when you shared that with me, and then just kind of going through the process of understanding what the left side represents, what the elbow represents, then it became clear that it had to do with an incongruency that you had with regards to your mother. And as you mentioned, like not being in full disclosure to how you were really, wanting to express things, and the way it showed up, it was like right there. And and again, Quinn was already beginning to open to that kind of stuff. I think just kind of being in conversation, you were kind of feeling sort of the, just the energy from our interaction. Go, okay, well maybe there's something here. And then so he sort of bought into that, and then had the conversation with Mom, and then just like magic, right? It's like almost like you let the air out. It's like, and so that's the body will always tell you. I mean, there's a great book called Power versus Force, where David Hawkins, who's a giant in consciousness, does muscle testing over long periods of time, like 20 years. And what he realized through it is essentially the essence of the book is that the body becomes strong when something is true, and the body becomes weak when something is false. And so even if you don't intellectually or consciously understand something, the body automatically knows. And so he had ran experiments for 20 years, and it's very scientific based. And so what he discovered was that it's like the body's connected to a universal intelligence, and our intellectual mind really gets in the way of that. And the conditioning we have from society about mind over body is essentially one of the one of these programs that sort of that detach us from our bodies. But the body carries the wisdom, and so when you begin to understand that, and I've had many experiences of my own self and my own body where something will be shared with me, and my body reacts to it, and my body will know before I even catch up to it intellectually. It's like literally it'll be like 3 days, and I got something going on with a finger or an elbow or something, and I know all the time, like, it's either, it's common if you heard it, it's like that's it, but it's like if you've done nothing and something is flaring up, it's like, and then right away when you begin to lean into it and you start to decipher the message, it's like, it automatically becomes very clear. It's like, oh, it's because of the way I'm holding that, or the perception of inside of that, and my body's picking it up, and then you simply go and release it via conversation or whatever the case, or free-form writing or whatever methodology you want to use, and then all of a sudden, gone. And so, and I think a lot of people at first, when you'll share something like that, there's a little bit of apprehension, right? Because there's a lot of cynicism in our world, and it's like, nah, it can't be. But I've experienced it so many times with people that it's like, okay, well, I kind of think you're kind of funny and weird and stuff, but if this changes what I'm experiencing, I'm gonna believe, you know. And then sure enough, they'll go and do it. It's like, oh my God, what the hell? I can't believe this, you know. But I think that's what's coming through. So, but that was a cool introduction to that whole idea and wisdom stream. And you know, so from there, you know, obviously it became clear. He spoke to mom. Mom sort of nodded and gave the okay and said, you know, follow your heart, and then why don't you continue the story from there?
And then so I was learning just, you know, about social media and everything at that time, and I basically decided to head back down home and, you know, just start right away with whatever he was, you know, whatever I needed to do. I didn't really know exactly how I was going to pan out. We still don't. But I remember it started with like some early mornings for me at least. And for the first probably like 2 or 3 weeks, we were just pretty much like, I was pretty much shadowing him. And so, you know, I was waking up, obviously, like I said, at school at, you know,
noon.
Late, noon.
Oh, so we're getting up at 5, 6 in the morning. It's like circadian rhythms are being altered here. It's like, what is this?
Yeah, so I was just totally in that space, and I came back, and he's like, look, if you want to be like a successful like entrepreneur, you know, you're gonna need to be up with the sun and then go to sleep with the moon. And started saying stuff like that. I'm like, who is this guy? I'm like, what do you mean? And I'm like, dude, I'm on my own thing, you know? So that is one thing that I think I'll give myself credit for, is even if I am skeptical, or I think, not skeptical, but if I think I know the way, but I see somebody that's just a little bit better, which obviously is not a little bit, but I'm willing to kind of just go for it. So I did, you know, I attempted, and I remember just one story when, oh man, I don't even remember. I think you were at that time leaving at like 7:45, like, and then to be there at 8 or you know, something like that. And I remember I was the alarm went off, and like, and then you realize that from my mom on the trip, just like how she doesn't get enough sleep, like she gets a headache and like her stomach hurts, and like, and I just remembered like one of these days, like, you know, I was supposed to go to his house by 7:30 or whatever, and I was just like in bed, and I'm just like, oh, like just, I couldn't do it. Like I was just so like weak, crank. And to me, it wasn't that important, you know, like in him, he's like, he has his routine. It's like, he's, you know, he's showing up at this time, he has a business, you know, and so it was inconsiderate on my part, because I'm just like, I'm just on my own thing, you know. If I'm, you know, 10, 15 minutes late, I'm good, because I'm up before 10, you know. So at the time,
I'm doing real good.
I'm like, I'm doing real good no matter what. And I remember I was like driving, and you needed like coconut water or something.
Yeah, that's right, for the shakes.
And I like go into Sprouts, and then it like, that pushed me a few minutes later, and he's like, he has this way of going about like things that need to be done, or things that are important, where it's very graceful, like he doesn't necessarily tell you, he like kind of goes a little, he makes you find it, you know. So he was texting me that way. I can't really explain how, but he was texting me like, did you get the water, the coconut water? And so like in that, I knew he was like, oh shoot, I'm late, you know, like I need to go. He's trying to make his shake, he just biked or whatever. So and then I just showed up, and then and then like I remember like I walked in and like your back was to me and like I was just like, oh shit,
You're in trouble.
I'm like, oh damn, dude. I'm like,
I don't have to say anything.
Yeah, I'm like holding the coconut water. I'm just like, got the coconut water, bro. But like, no, it's just like a typical movie scene, like, you know, the guy's in the back in the chair and just like this, just kind of like, and you just see him, and he just like turns in, and I don't know what he said, but something just kind of pointing me to what I could learn inside of it, not so much like, hey, you know, you didn't make it. There was learning inside of it. So we were doing that for probably 2-3 weeks, and at that time I was like taking photos, writing the posts, I mean, doing a lot of different things at the time, getting Starbucks coffee, I mean, anything. So I was just willing to, you know, do, I still am just willing to do whatever it was that he needed. And then he introduced me to Gabriel, which is the office, which is whose office we're in right now. So everything just kind of grew, and just starting was only a year and 2 months ago. I knew you 18 months ago, but I mean, I only left school a year and 2 months ago, and behind this, you know, is my cousin, and then Naveed, and I mean, these are people that, I mean, my cousin obviously, and then I met Naveed at Sprouts. So just the fact that, you know, just in a year, not just what I've grown, I mean, they'll tell you too, they quit their jobs and you quit your job like 2 days ago.
There's a theme here.
Yeah.
I did.
So everybody's helping, you know, what we're doing, and, you know, a lot of it has to do with, I just resonated with like his why, you know, and he always talks about that. It was just like, man, like, it's not just about making money, waking up early and just like grinding away. Like, he had a way that he went about it that was for sure different than what you see like the top CEOs doing, where it's just like they just make it about like wake up, go to the gym, put on a suit, go. When you enter business, you're just trying to make money. And it was just, he had this thing about human connection and just the way he was talking about stuff. And I'm like, dude, I'm with wherever this goes, because this makes sense to me, and this is what I think I've done, but not really conscious of that I was doing it. And so it's just grown, and then now we've gone on 3 trips already in like 7 months. So
yeah, and I think that what just to kind of interject there, there are a couple of different things that I love about what you're saying. One of them, as you were talking about how you transitioned, you know, in that transition from school into this, and you said something to the effect like, you know, like, I don't quite know even where it's going yet, but there is this trust and this sort of leap of faith, and I think there's a lot of confusion for people, especially when it comes to like your purpose in life and your soul's purpose, and it's like you're like seeking it, you know, and sometimes that seeking actually keeps you from living it, right? It's like you are what you are seeking, you know, and it's cool because inside of that, it's like by just sort of trusting life's unfolding, you are living your purpose. You know, when you really, you know, sort of move through it, like you are living your purpose right now, you know what I mean? And the more you just kind of, and you really only live your purpose in sort of that divine unknowing. You know, where you just don't know where it's all going. It's like a magical carpet mystery ride, you know, and it just kind of takes you here and here, and before you know it, you just wake up with them like, holy shit, I'm living the dream of the life I've always wanted to live, you know? And that's the way it showed up for you. And here you are, as you're saying, just following, you know, sort of what is being, like, what's showing up, you're following that impulse, that energy, and it's like, yeah, that feels right, and that feels right, and then before you know it, you're in a bloom mode, and so much about life is that way. You know, you've got to break out of those comfort zones and what your mental construct was about the way the world was going to show up and how it was going to unfold. You just got to scrap all that, no expectation, no attachment, like just fully committed to yourself and just detach from the outcome. Let life do its magic. And I think you're a great example of that because, I mean, you're not even 20? Or you just turned 20, that's right.
Gonna be 21.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I don't like to say because I'm trying to get a lot done by 21, you know? So
right.
I'm still 20.
Still 20, you're still underneath the mark. But here you are, I mean, under 21, and you know, you got your own organization, you got a few people working alongside with you, and things are moving, and you know, it's like, and the type of life that you are destined to lead takes time. It takes patience, you know, and it's not like, you know, sometimes we see things out on the shows and, you know, somebody young making millions and it's like, we want to compare, but it's like, that is not your destiny, you know, and when we get into the game of comparison, this is where then you start to make moves out of desperation or out of a different emotional thing, and then you make that move and it comes from a lower vibrating frequency emotion, like, I want to be just as good, or the ego, or whatever, and it's like, you go and you do it, and you put all your energy on it, and it's like, you know, it's like you get the feedback that says, no, that's not the way to do it, you know, go back to what was feeling cool, and maybe the material possession wasn't quite there, but which one feels better, you know, and I think when you go from that construct, it's like, man, there's no real question to that, and then now, since then, I mean, you know, you've jumped in, you're on this mission, you've launched Giving Marketing Soul, which is about really working with individuals that are looking to do something unique in the world. They're bringing up a very unique brand, and you got that sort of human connection element. Now you've gone on 3 trips. I mean, and then in the last 7 months, we went to Ensenada 3 times, so you get like a big badge of honor inside of that. I mean, you've gone in 3, yeah, exactly, man. I mean, and that's the crazy thing about it. You think about it, dude. It's like you're on your deathbed. You're getting those 3 homes and those 3 families will flash through. They're gonna go like this, you know, and it's not gonna be any other than those really amazing things. And now you've done 3 of them. Your beautiful girlfriend here, Alexis, has done 2 of them. And so let's hear a little bit about this love story and how it showed up. I just saw you guys' pose. I was like, that's such a cool pose. I love your long hair.
Oh,
you look awesome.
Thank you. So I actually think you were the first one to find it, or somebody that I recently added as a friend on Facebook from our trip was going through, and then they liked it. And you know how when somebody likes it brings it up on everybody else's newsfeed. So then. I think that's how you saw it.
And I saw it, and it's cool because I think this was in high school. This is prom? Or 16, 17?
We were, how old were we in that? Homecoming?
Oh, it's that.
How old were we in that picture? Like,
I was like
17?
Oh, 17? Maybe. I looked 50.
So you guys met in high school?
No, we met in
middle school.
Middle school.
Earlier.
Oh, wow.
We may have even met each other in elementary school.
Oh, wow.
Because we Claremont. It's all
small community.
But we met, I would say, really in the Miss King's class, probably. In that class, we had some like back and forth, like
some energy. There's just some vibes. Always.
Some vibes.
Like good vibes, or like you're like some attraction stuff happening.
All of it.
Yeah, nice.
Just the beginning, though. You know, like you didn't really know what it was.
You don't understand, especially if you've never felt anything like that or had that with somebody.
But at the beginning, it was just. At the beginning, I felt like it was just like we just wanted to talk to each other.
Yeah, we did.
I remember at school we had like these rallies, you know, where everyone goes in the gym. It gets hot and sweaty and stinky, man, and then everybody's like ego about their own class or whatever. And then I remember she like dropped her phone like through the thing.
I broke it.
She cracked it, and I don't know what I said.
That was one of the first crazy.
I don't know what I said, but
there was something.
There was something that I don't know if I made fun of her or something.
He's like, you don't know the woman. He's like, I remember.
And then I was, we went to the rally, and we went she broke her phone, went back to the same class we had together, and then we were watching a movie, and I was just like on Twitter, I remember, and I just remember like I just see the teacher's hand come next to me. She's like, and then I got my phone taken away, and then I remember she was like it was instant like karma, and we actually did that yesterday. Kind of the same thing, remember?
Oh yeah, our
Jake was there
yesterday.
No, instant karma.
Because she's helping with what we're doing, you know, now with some of the stuff that, like the event page and just some of those things. And I've been dictating to her, so like I'll just send a memo, like a voice memo, and then like she'll like go and do it. And we were talking, and we like, she said that I had said to like send something to her before I did. I'm like, no, I didn't. So like we listened to all the dictations, and like I didn't.
You never said it.
Yeah, I didn't say it. So I'm like, all right, like I'm 1-0.
Yeah, that's
and
great. I'm not doing that shit. 1-0.
Yeah. And then she came yesterday, and then for the canvas, and we ordered them for you, and then she said that I said to order like 3 for us as well. And then I'm like, no, I don't think I said that. And then she's like, yeah, you did. And Jake was like, I think you did, bro. I'm like, Jake, what's good, bro? I'm like, come on, man.
You're supposed to defend your bro.
And then she like goes through the first dictation, and then like I didn't say it, and then the second one, and I didn't say it, and then that third one, like I'm like, oh, dude, I'm like, I said it,
man. And even Jake could tell too. Him and I were looking at each other like, this is the one where he says it.
Boom. And then I just said it, and then it was just like boom. And so now
we were all
1-1.
laughing.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so we're 1-1. Yeah, so and then.
Where were we?
Yeah, so we were. Yeah, so that happened, and then well, we had met then, and then or that was how we kind of got connected, and then
when did you guys officially start dating per se?
We were like 6.
Well, I've never technically like asked.
I guess we never
her
really.
out.
So this is the way you do it, huh? So it's just kind of like.
Oh yeah.
It
was, I
good
tracked,
to know.
It took a long time.
We tracked it off of the way we tracked the first day that we just had lunch. That was how we track it.
Got it.
But I think
so. It was a slow play by Quinn.
It was a very slow.
She gave me that one-arm hug the first time too, man. So I was doing slow play, man.
It's like,
it was a later, buddy. Later, champ. I'm like, damn,
this is gonna take a while. Like all great ones do.
It was slow, but yeah, I don't know. We've always just had this unexplainable connection with each other, even at such a young age. I mean, the things that we used to talk about, and we've always especially connected on caring for others and just an overall sense of caring. We love life, we love the world, we want to travel the world. Just
animals for sure too.
We love animals. We love. It's just something that from day one.
Yeah.
We've always connected on that.
Love that.
Music.
Yeah,
music.
Just a deeper.
Yeah,
we've always
like
just
it's just like
really
a deeper soul connection.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's really what I feel. You know, obviously connected the two of you, even connected into here, because there's just kind of that deeper soul connection. And I think for younger people, what I find is that, like, I think at the depth of the human experience, what you're sharing is what we all want to do.
Right.
We all really, truly want to help and be of service. Like, if you're walking down the street as an individual, as a human, and you see somebody in need, there's a natural, like, impulse to help. And I feel like the newer souls or like, let's say the more recent souls are like in operating systems that are more sort of cleared of the debris and the carbon density that the older souls have to work through in order to get to where you're at. You know what I mean? And I think that's why the message lands with you guys so much sooner. Like if I'm telling my kids about what we're doing in philanthropy, it's like for them it's just common sense.
Right.
Like, what the fuck are you not doing already?
Right.
This is like, you know what I mean? That's like, I think the sense of like, if you tell my 12-year-old son, like some of the deeper, you know, workings of the globe right now with like human trafficking and just, it's like, there's like a short, like there's like short circuits. I'm like why?
Yeah.
You know, because they get it at a much more fundamental level. But I think the DNA is cleaner.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like the older individuals, like there's just more density that we've had to work through. Not that you can't work through it, but once you get to the other side, then it's different. But I think that's kind of why the message for you on philanthropy and you. I mean, if that was already a common theme you guys are talking about, and then Francisco arrives talking about philanthropy, it's like, okay, there's a connection there, and does that make sense?
Yeah, it was perfect.
Yeah,
it was honestly perfect, and just already having that connection and already having the type of relationship that we have, being able to do that together, it's such a satisfying feeling, and I feel so grateful to have somebody that I'm in a relationship with that understands that feeling, not only understands but is willing to act on it with you. That is just so I can't explain how amazing that is to have that.
That's really beautiful. Yeah, that's really beautiful that you shared it that way, because I think how I see that in what you just shared, it's like the feminine has a natural predisposition to having a reverence for life because you create life.
Yeah.
Right? It's like it's in the DNA with you. It's in your womb. And because you are birthers of life, there's a natural affinity to like to take care of all things in life, all things sacred. And the masculine has been sort of bamboozled to believe in something else.
Right.
And because of that bamboozling and bad programming, you know, the world is showing up in the way that it is, and so especially for the masculine to come and be of service like that, it softens the heart of the feminine in a way that is, like you said, inexplicable. It's just like, thank God that my man is willing to.
Seriously.
Yeah, and I can only try to articulate it so much, but I think that is really what's going on, because you understand that now you have, you know, as I would call it, like a guardian of the womb, you know, guardian of life, someone that is willing, that is here to usher in a new earth, to be a protector of all things sacred. And that's exactly what is needed to transform the world. We need a legion of soul-centered men that will say, hey, enough is enough. We're going to now do this, because just in the same way that we have the power to, you know, derail this, we also have the power to put it back onto the right rails. And I think your experience is kind of what you're sharing inside of that. And so tell us about that. I mean, what I find really cool in this conversation is that, like you mentioned, I mean, you guys have been on 2 trips together. And what's cool about what's transpiring is that life is just doing its thing. We had 4 couples at the last trip. You know, you guys started it off because you guys did it together along with Jake, and so you guys did it together, and then all of a sudden now we had 2 additional couples come on the last one, and you know, and we had Desiree and Bill, and you know, she had an opportunity. It sounded like that they really had like a deep healing in there, like we all experienced just some really heart-opening processes for both of them. And now the closeness that is developing and bonding at like creates like, whoa, I mean, it's amazing. So share what it's been like for you guys to go down there, to experience that, and just kind of like let loose on what that's all like.
You're looking at me.
Who's gonna start it, right?
I mean, I think just the trips, I mean, to me it just seems normal. Like, to me it's like, it's just like, that's just what we would do, like you were saying. So I think it just supplements our relationship already, and just starts to even reinforce that foundation of like just being good people and just doing well unto others. So for me, I think it just has improved our communication, I think, and then I just feel like it makes like the problem. I mean, we don't.
Because you don't, and I think that also. Yeah, I think that there's a function in there too, where let's say you were experiencing problems. Obviously, you know, you don't really have maybe some of the baggage that a lot of you know. It's like, so it's pretty clean slate to begin with.
Yeah, definitely.
But now I think you throw the philanthropy on top of that, and you see how other people live, how they're experiencing life. It's just like anytime there is any sort of like potential like debris coming up in the dynamic, it's like, oh, who gives a shit?
Seriously.
It's like, this means very little. This is like a delusion of our mind that you don't love me or don't care, you know, something that effect maybe.
And I think a big thing is just separate from that, and I've been starting to even tell Jake and Naveed and even her, just like I think when we spend time together, even more since the first trip, like we're just not on our phones when we're with each other. Nice. And I think that is something I just think that's huge, and it's something that's overlooked, you know, because people are just like, and it's just like, I mean, we'll just.
That's so true.
Yeah,
so
I think that's the big, like, it seems like it's, that's not, but it really has to me, like, if I know we're gonna do, like, hang out, do something, and it's like, we're just no phones, and it's just like, if it's to look up to go somewhere, but it's just like, it's on no notification, just put it away, and then I think that,
creates the magic.
That's true. Ever since the first
that's
trip,
amazing.
when we're together, the only time we pull our phones out is to look up the time or see, you know,
and then sometimes,
going.
I notice what we used to do, and I think we're starting to do it less. Where like we'll be talking about something and be like, "Hey, like, do you remember what that thing?" And then like it'd be like, "Oh, let me just Google," and it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, continue with what you're saying because it doesn't even matter what that little thing looks like or to get the name of it. It's just kind of, we start to just use our minds versus like, what was that called? And then then something pops up and then you're right there in it. You know? So I would say experiencing the trips together where, you know, most everyone's not on the phone and just kind of in that, you know, that field where I think we just start to take it over and like, you know, start to just, we have that experience together. Sure. So when stuff does come up, we're like, we don't even probably have to say it. It's just like, we connect in like, this isn't even, let's just talk it out, you know?
Yeah, that's how it's been ever since we came back from the first trip. We just, and it's not, you don't have to tell yourself, oh, come on, don't be on your phone. It's just, like, that's how it is. We just have this internal gratefulness of just being together and being able to spend time together and have a great time together, that it doesn't, we don't even think about it. And that's just how it is. And that's a really good, I believe, foundation to have, right? Because that's a difficult habit to break yourself from, especially as a couple. So I'm grateful that we just have that unspoken. That's just how it is.
So philanthropy breaks addiction to cell phones.
It does. You heard it here first.
Right.
I can.
Well, and I think because you know, I think the experience of being out there, you know, where we find the magic is, you know, in the distinction between philanthropy and charity. Charity is like you're giving money, you're sort of providing a band-aid. Philanthropy, you're going into a situation and seeing how you can improve it. But like with going down and experiencing philanthropy, one of the things that makes it so unbelievable or just like wow is that you do drop into the moment, right? You're just in that experience of whatever it is that you're doing, and that's where we start to find that's where the magic happens. You know, Daniel, who was on the trip with us, just came back from going and experiencing a festival with the Huichol people. These are indigenous people who have these rituals that they've had for 5,000 years. And they call it the blue deer, and it's where they go and they grab peyote out in the desert, and then they have this ceremony that they do for 3 days. And when they went down there, they had taken a doctor who was doing their doctorate work around this particular indigenous tribe. And the experience that they constantly have down there is just magical. One of the reasons it's so magical, I think, is just because they must hold a different vibration. There is no cell phones, there is none of that, so they're just really submerged in the moment. But because of their use of the plants and the allied plants, they're able to sort of, you know, there's clairvoyance, there's clairaudience, there's sort of telepathy powers, and so much of it, what he was sharing was just, because they are not being hit up by those cell phones and the stimulus of that. And what you find very fascinating, I mean, the technology is great, but it has become addiction. One thing that you may want to research is that Steve Jobs did not allow his kids to get on these things. Okay, so now we have the creator of Apple who does not let his kids get on there. What did he know and what did he realize about the potential harmfulness of these things? I think they're sort of the modern day cigarette. You know, it's a cancer stick that I think 20, 30 years from now, a lot of people end up with probably brain cancer because they don't quite have the medical backing to understand what the impact is of that. But I mean, if you put one of these damn things in there, fuck, it's hot.
Yeah.
I mean, it has the power to be submerged into a parking structure underneath cement, and that energy is able to penetrate through all. What is it doing to the ear? What is it doing to that side of the brain? And if you're a young child that is still developing the cranium to protect, and you're throwing that thing on there, this is not good, you know. And I think, you know, and it's not just. And they said, people would say, well, no, they would tell us. Go look back at cigarette histories and doctors like smoking these in their things saying that these are good for you. Don't be misled by science, because science is operating under a set of assumptions that have led us, you know, wrongfully down an interesting path. So I don't know where in the hell I was going, but but the Huichole people, and to the point of the philanthropy and dropping you into the moment, that's where the magic is. And so like experiencing that within just yourselves and just saying, hey, no cell phone, you're just deep in the moment, you're connecting. And how much is that? Because especially in relationships, I think that's what we want more than anything, is that connection.
Sure.
And I think women and men are just constantly craving that, but yet we're self-sabotaging it in a way where we're in a dinner. I mean, this is not you go to dinner, you see the couples on across from each other on the phones. It's just fascinating to watch this all unfolding, and it just could be as simple as letting the cell phones go while you're just hanging out. But if that's what philanthropy does, I mean, it's a nice piece of it. Yeah,
I know that's like, you know, I just think everyone has that ability to implement that, and I put a video up on my YouTube yesterday just talking about that. Like, just try it for like a day where you just like leave it there and just you realize like all the things that you think are going to come through, and notifications and people wanting to get a hold of you and just all these things. I just feel like it all revolves around that phone. So I just prefer to use what we're doing and just be like using the phone, not it using me. So like the phone's right there, but it's, you know, it's communicating our message. But if I go there and I'm constantly scrolling and back and forth and this and that and this, and it's just like it becomes like you're mindlessly kind of just doing it. So
you talking like, you mean like going through like news feed after news feed after news feed?
Like, or like I noticed too, and I mean, just because I'm saying it doesn't mean that I don't do it. I'm just telling you, when we're together, it's pretty like, hey, we're not gonna, and we notice too. You notice too, if like you're with somebody, nobody's got the phone out, and the first person somebody gets, it's like, I'm gonna grab my phone too.
It's like technology.
And then it's like, now that I've been aware of that, I'm like holding it, like not wanting to do it, but I'm like, oh, this is important. I was like, no, it's not. So,
it's so easy that it just takes you, because like you could be flowing, and then all of a sudden, ding. And even if you don't grab it, it's like you can automatically feel that the energy starts to leak. It's like, and it's like you're who is it? It's like,
oh, it's probably her. Oh, it's about that. Oh, I'm gonna go do that.
Or sleeping with your notifications on, or
and I told them, and I've done it. So what I've done is I still obviously sometimes get caught up in the browsing or whatever, but I turn off all the notifications. And so then I just set up times to check those, so that I don't get a ding or ding. It's like I just check it, you know, every 2 hours or an hour and a half, whatever it is. But because I notice, and they'll tell you too, like, man, when you have that ding, 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 like it's insane. So we just kind of eliminate that by just not even worrying about the phone and just using it instead of it like using us. So, oh, I'm gonna go on Instagram Live, boom, put it up, but I'm not gonna be trying to, get caught up in what it does.
And we've had some of the greatest times since then too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Awesome. Yeah, for sure. So I would say that, and just I feel just in general more grounded with just like.
Has your life been, do you find, I feel like there's this direct correlation too between, service and simplicity, simpler and simpler.
Yeah.
Right? But prior to that, it's like, there's this idea like, again, what success and what happiness will, like how you create that. So it's like you're on this hamster wheel of doing that. And I think when you start doing service, a lot of those constructs just start falling apart. And it says like simplicity or Da Vinci. But he says that simplicity is the ultimate form of sophistication.
Yes.
And it's Da Vinci, and it is great. But I feel like through sort of burning the ego away inside of service, it's like that ego aspect of us that wants this and wants that and wants this. It's like it doesn't even It's like I want to go build home. And I know it sounds weird, right? So everyone's like, who hasn't built a home or done service work? But it literally is like you are kind of in a euphoric state. Everyone, like when we get on the van, it's like there's like maybe the first 30 minutes to let's like, but then it's like boom, like walls go down, transparency. Everyone is like, it's like we're in an ayahuasca ceremony. Everyone's good. Everyone's like in a just loving mode, and I love you. I think you're the greatest person ever. You're sweet, and I mean all through it, and then you leave. It's like you're drunk with love. And I remember at one point through this, Lori from the University of Santa Monica was there with us, and the first day I'm there, and I literally go up to her and I'm like, I feel like I'm on ecstasy, and she's like, give me some of that, and I'm just like, I love making love to life. I mean, it just felt just like, I was sharing it earlier today, I'm like, I feel like I got bliss like running through my veins sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is the elixir of life we were all looking for out here. It's like, it's in the human connection. It's woven into those most in need. And once we give service to that, it's like, whoa. It's like it starts to heal us.
Yeah.
It starts to make us whole.
Totally. I can't express more to people. Hopefully, everybody that watches this too. Mm-hmm. Do it. Get involved. Do it. I once had a college professor say, people in need, it's more beneficial to them to just give them money to survive. They say people go, build for them, do this for them, for their ego. And imagine the people that walked away from that experience believing it, but go out there and do it and understand for yourself. It's so important, especially at a young age, to feel that now and to be able to carry that on with you throughout your life. So it's just so important to go out and experience it for yourself.
I love that. I think what you're sharing there too, it's like, I forget what the quote is, but it's like people that have authority, and they share things like that. I mean, they really can derail somebody and take them off path for a long time. And society has been doing that. And so what you're suggesting is just like take that information, but go apply it, go test it yourself. It's like go and give the money and then go and experience it and then decide for yourself what feels better. Once you do that, you realize, and that's with all things in life. I mean, we're constantly being barraged with, hey, this and that, and once you take information from the outside, you have to run it through your own filter, your own heart's desire, your own soul's understanding and knowing, and things may or may not be true for you, and the only way to really experiment with that is to go and do it. And so like in that situation, you've done it, it's like, no, that guy was way off base.
There's no I give people money all the time when I see them, and there's no comparison because it's hard work. It is work. It's hard work. Did my light stop? Oh. It's hard work. Like it just is, and I think that's another thing too is that we see it's all ones. How we see how each other is as well. Like, you know, like if we're trying to, you know, make the ladder or put stuff on the roof, like we see our dynamic through that too. So like,
that's awesome.
So like, there's things where like and that's what it's done as well. Is she's like, okay, right now here, I think you're being a little stubborn.
Yeah.
You need to go on this side and try and hit it that way.
I love this.
So
because it is. It's so like, and that's such a damn good point. But it's like people see when you start to understand, you know, these other realms. Like, you have to understand the subtle, right? Because so much is in the subtle, right? And most people ignore that because you're in the mind, you're just on autopilot, and you miss those little cues. And that's a really great example of one, because the way you show up one way, you show up every way, in every other direction. So it's like, it's the exact same thing. They're like little microcosms that give you insight to dynamics. Yeah. And so like you guys are running a ladder, and it's like you can see it all kind of coming up and bubbling. You're just like,
Man. The first time we built the ladder was just it's crazy.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, no, it's for sure that, and it's like, and I think the first time it was like we saw it, I saw it, but now because of that first one already happening, the second one was a little more like, I'm gonna accept the way that our dynamic is and like see how we can like improve it. So I think this one was more, because I think we do choose to work together in that way as well, because we like figure stuff out, you know. So we did the roof, and then we did I think when we were doing like the
marking.
The marking.
You guys were sawing.
When was that?
We did that the whole day.
Saturday.
Yeah, we were drawing stuff, right? And then so like we were just seeing stuff that like she was like, no, I don't think, or I don't even know. Sometimes I mix it up because I had that with my mom too. And it was the one with my mom was funny because
man. I
we
think
were
I caught it.
Yeah, and I knew that, and it was like, and I was watching like, so I was building this ladder so going back to like, when you're doing something with somebody like at the build, you know, whether you're making the ladder or the door, or you're painting or something, and you're doing it with someone that you have a relationship with, even when we were doing it, you like, it's like you're just, and I'm like, all right, dude, here's your, you know, like, because, and that's what we're doing right now, you know, it's like, all right, you have the audience, the position, and it's like, well, I'm going to give you the little social media. I'm going to show you that. So, but with my mom, it was funny because like we're building the ladder, and so we started off, and then I think I already told you guys this, but I was like hammering it in, and like my mom doesn't think like I can do any of that stuff because I've never done it. So I was like doing it, and then like it like the nail was just like, and then I like took it out, and she's like and then so I did. I'm like, these nails suck, because like this time I was way better with hitting them in, and then like Connor comes by and he's like, oh yeah, those nails suck. He's like, that's not your fault. And then like later my mom was like, I thought that was you. I'm like, you're lucky Connor came by, or else I was gonna think that was, you're like, you're lucky, or else I would have thought that was you. And so I start hitting them in or whatever, and then you're like right there, just like putting on that the side panel or whatever it's called.
That's right.
And so like you're kind of like hovering, and you're like, oh, like you're like trying not to get caught in it, and then like perfectly we were like midway through that ladder, and then you came up, you're like, oh, you guys are doing such a good job, and like that's just totally how she is with my mom, and I will be like talking something out, and then like she'll come over and she'll be like, hey, and then like it's just like, so she's not seeing all the stuff where we're going back and forth, but then she'll bring, so the dynamic's the same, because it's like I'm working through this thing with my mom, she'll come in, kind of mediate it, and then it's just like, oh, there, you know, it's not, it like brings us back down, like, all right, let's do this. And then there was a part where my mom was like, let me try, and I'm like, all right, I'll let you try then. And she comes around, and I'm holding it, and she's like, wait, and she was like, she like couldn't even like.
She was like bending her
and then
knees.
she was just laughing because she's like she knew what she had done.
Yeah.
She didn't even. She was like,
Gosh. So funny.
It's like, all right, and then I'm like doing it good, and so, but we just like totally, that's what I think it does too. And the same way you say business is an evolutionary tool, it's like these things in life where you think you're just building a home, you know, if you choose to do it with somebody that you're in a relationship with, or a friend or mentor or whatever, like you start to see like, that's how I act towards them. Like, and I was noticing my mom was like, she was like, do you need this? Like, do you need to grab that? Oh, do you want this? And then I was just like, look, we got everything we need. We got the hammer, and like, you know. And then even with how we were working together, she was like, I don't think. I'm like, you got it. And she like kept hitting it, and like it worked. And so it's like we see like where she may question herself. I'm like, no, just go for it.
Yeah.
And she sees me where I'm just like, no, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. And she's like, no, you're being stubborn. I'm like, all right, you hit it, please.
Build
So
a
it
house
opens
together.
you up.
Build a house together. You'll discover your strengths and your weaknesses.
It opens you up. So those are the takeaways.
Love it. So what's the time? Are we at like 40, 45?
An hour.
Oh, an hour. Oh, jeez. Okay, yeah. So
I knew I was gonna.
And that's what we call a wormhole.
That's it, pretty much. Absolutely. So I think we went a little bit longer than usual, but definitely a great conversation. Love the last piece there about just how being in philanthropy shows you, especially in a relationship, of what the dynamics are in the overall relationship.
Yeah.
It's not just a little microcosm. It starts to share with you how you engage and interact with each other, and through that give you insight into the bigger relationship that'll allow you to be more graceful there, because in this environment it's fun and you guys are laughing. Humor is such good medicine, and service is such good medicine, that when you're doing it, it's easier to deal with those things because you're in a higher vibrating state that makes the other stuff seem so like minute, that when you get back out to the other, it's like you're starting to move through things much quicker. So one of the secrets to sacred union, philanthropy.
Philanthropy. You gotta do it.
Yeah.
September 15th.
September 15th, we're going to be doing it again, and we also have a giving celebration that we have scheduled for the 28th of June. It's going to be from 4 to 6 p.m. It's going to be at the Mortgage Phoenix Group. It's going to be a great night. So if you've been tracking us, if you're interested in what we're doing, if you want to come and just vibe off the energy and find out a little bit more about what's going on, how you can get involved, be aware that we're going to be doing some posts and some videos, and we got an event page, and it's going to be again at the Phoenix, so it should be a great night. Yeah. So much love, everybody. Thank you for tuning in as always, and we'll be back next week. We got a special guest.